Hello everyone, welcome back to the Daily Knitter podcast. My name is Tiffany. Today I will be talking about two finished objects, a handful of whips, and no acquisitions, potentially some future plans. I think this podcast is coming out a week late because unfortunately me, my husband, and my mom all had food poisoning last weekend. It was rough. That's pretty much the best word to sum it up. So yeah, I was not able to film last week, even though technically I finished this sweater basically at the tail end of having food poisoning, but I was in no condition to be filming. I was barely in any condition to be knitting, to be honest. It wasn't until like the third day that I was feeling good enough to sit up and like be doing something, but not quite good enough to like go back to work and use my brain and things like that. Yeah, I would not wish food poisoning on my worst enemy. It was truly terrible. So anyways, not going to go into grisly details, but that is why this is a little late. But yeah, so let's get into my first finished object, and that is the step-by-step sweater by Florence. This is already up on my Instagram. So I have photos there, and all the photos I usually put up here are the ones that I put on Instagram in case you're interested. But yeah, this is actually one of the first sweaters I cast on. I was debating between doing this sweater and my first Monday sweater when I was deciding on my first knitted sweater piece, and I decided to use the nicer yarn that I had to do the Monday sweater, and then I kind of just didn't really have any yarns allocated for the step-by-step sweater, but that was one that I was interested in because the pattern is really clearly written. It's a free pattern, and Florence has a YouTube channel. She's a YouTuber here as well, and she has a very, very, very in-depth video that goes through how to make the sweater step-by-step for true beginners. So I, for some reason, I guess I just didn't decide to cast on that yarn for this project. So technically this is my second sweater that I've knit, even though I would say this is definitely more beginner friendly than the Monday sweater. Florence gives a few different options in the pattern for the neckline. You can either do a folded neck like this or a more turtleneck look. For me, I think I just look weird with turtlenecks, so I tend to just go for a standard round neck. So she gives two different neckline options. She also gives you options to do German short rows or not. I believe I did do the German short rows, and I think they came out looking a little bit better on this sweater. I'm not sure if you can really tell where they are. I still have a hard time telling like where German short rows are in a project sometimes. I think they're on this side. And they definitely look neater than the German short rows in my cloud blouses. Maybe it's because of the thickness of the yarn. Again, I'm not quite sure. Maybe I just do a messier German short row. I don't know. The raglan stitch is a one stitch raglan. I believe it's a one stitch raglan going through, and it's completely done in the round, which I think again makes it very beginner friendly because you don't have to do any like short row shaping flat and then joining in the round and things. And again, the short row shaping is optional. So if you are a true beginner and you're intimidated by that, then you don't have to do that option. And yeah, the rest of the sweater, it's 1x1 rib detailing for the sleeves and the body. So that is the pattern notes, pretty much all that I had. Again, very well written pattern. I found it super easy to follow, even though technically this is like my second sweater that I've done, but I still found it a really great pattern. I wouldn't be surprised if I knit it again. You know, I'm the type of person where if I find a pattern that looks good and that I enjoy knitting, I don't see a reason to like go looking for other patterns unless someone is like, oh, like you have to try this sweater pattern. So for me, like this and the Monday sweater, pretty content with. A great pattern. Now, as for the yarn, I use the Yarn Bee Soft and Sleek in Parisian Light. It is a variegated yarn, so it's dyed in these different colorways so that it achieves this cool kind of striping effect when you knit it, which I really like. I like how it's kind of tighter on the sleeve but yet almost actually looks like it perfectly lines up with the body. It was kind of done unintentionally, obviously, because I had different balls of yarn that I had to just kind of use, but I actually think it came out looking really intentional. My mom even asked me, she was like, wow, did you do all that color work? And I was like, no, it's all one ball of yarn, which I love because I love something that like looks hard but was actually easy to do. So I tend to work with a lot of variegated yarns because you can achieve this kind of color work effect. And yeah, I think it looks really cool. I like this colorway a lot. I like that the base is still a white neutral color, and it does have a lot of color in it, but it's maybe slightly more muted. The composition of the yarn is, I mean, it's 100% acrylic. So that being said, one note about that is I completely forgot that acrylic yarns don't really grow after blocking. So I made the body too short because usually, you know, with wool yarns, I make the body pretty short because they really grow a lot when you block them. And I like a not necessarily cropped look, but because I'm petite, I need to crop most patterns, period, just for it to fit me actually the way that I want it to fit. And so I was knitting this with that in mind, but forgetting that acrylic really does not grow at all. Like it grows a little bit, but not by a lot. So I really should have gone the extra few inches because it is a little bit of a cropped look. I don't mind it. I'm still gonna wear this sweater, but if I were to do it again, I think in an acrylic yarn, I would keep that in mind. And obviously keep that in mind if you all are making something with acrylic. I would just think about that it's not really gonna grow that much. Yeah, otherwise, the sleeves, I kept pretty much the same length because I didn't mind that they were gonna be a little longer, so I don't think I really shortened the sleeves much. And as for the ribbing, I believe I did size down half a needle size for the ribbing on the body, but I totally forgot to do that on the sleeves, which is fine. I actually prefer a kind of wider sleeve look, similar to like the cloud blouse, how it has a wider sleeve. It doesn't really cinch in. I don't like it when sweaters really cinch in tight like that anyways. So after I finished some of the ribbing on the first sleeve and realized that, I was like, oh no, but I just decided to go with it and do the same thing for the other sleeve. So I think you can tell maybe just a little bit that the body cinches in maybe a tiny bit more compared to the sleeves, but I don't think it's super obvious. And yeah, and then even the neck, I think the neck I did do the size down, like the half size down for the neck. I honestly can't remember at this point because I cast this on so early and like left it just on the needles for months. But yeah, it's a worsted weight sweater. I believe the gauge I think is supposed to be 17 stitches. So for me, this truly flew by so quickly, and it was kind of fun to be knitting with like 5.5, like 5.5 millimeter needles with a thicker yarn. It just felt so satisfying because everything was like knitting up so quickly. So I definitely want to knit this again with a wool fiber, maybe cashmere, something like that. Yeah, really fun knit. I like to have something thick on the needles because again, it's like a satisfying project to do. My next finished object, I will say there's a tiny caveat, and that is the Lulu Slipover Junior. And the only caveat is that I technically have not sewn on the buttons. I'm still waiting for them to be delivered, but I still wanted to share it in this podcast because if I didn't share it in this one, I probably wouldn't share it for another 2 weeks. And I just finished blocking this, so I kind of wanted to talk about it while it was fresher in my mind. This is technically the second Lulu Slipover I've knitted. I knitted another one in some spare yarn that I just had laying around that was like not the right gauge, not the right needle, nothing. I mainly did that one for myself so that I could practice the pattern because this is going to be a gift for one of my nieces. She is 5 years old. This is going to be a Christmas gift for her, and she got to pick out the yarn. She loves pink, so of course she picked out this pink yarn. And I have shared about this yarn in a previous knitting podcast. I'll find it and put it up here. And I will also link the one where I talk about the first one that I knitted because there are some pattern notes in there as well. And beyond that, I mean, the only difference that I did with this slipover and the one that I knit for myself is obviously I knit it in a different size. This is a smaller size, but also I did do the double neck edge with and then you basically knit double the length of the neck edge, then you fold it down and you knit it together plus binding off. And I feel like that was super intimidating when I was doing my first slip over, so I just decided to do like a standard ribbing and bound off. I didn't even do the fold over, but for this one I obviously wanted it to have a way more like finished and polished look, and I felt more confident in trying that. And so I think it turned out really well. Like it creates this beautiful finished edge on the inside, and then of course, you know, the top is just the folded over part, so it's also very neat. So I really liked the look of that. I do think this knit came out really neat. I'm really proud of myself. I feel like my tension was particularly good with this project. I think part of that is the yarn. It's really forgiving. It's the Sandisgarn. You know what, let me just grab the yarn real quick. It is the Sandisgarn Smart Superwash, and it's in the colorway 4616. I think it's called hot pink, I'm not sure. The gauge is supposed to be 22 stitches with 3.5mm needles. The gauge for the actual slip over is meant to be 20 stitches on 4mm needles. So I actually also didn't do a gauge swatch, even though this is a gift, but I just felt confident if I moved up to 4mm, I would hit gauge, and I did. So yeah, this pretty much came out perfectly the size that it was meant to, which I'm really happy about. And yeah, this is definitely a little big for her, but again, you know, she's a kid, so she's gonna grow into it, and I'd rather knit her something that she can grow into rather than knit something that fits perfectly and then, you know, she kind of can't wear it anymore. And this is meant to be kind of a looser slip over vibe. And yeah, it's super flat right now because I just blocked it, but when it lays, you know, it's gonna lay closer to this, like the sides are gonna kind of come in like that. And it's meant to have this really big armhole. You can see it in some of the photos that Petite Knit has, like what it looks like. And this is almost exactly the same color that for the one that she knit for her daughter, I think that's like on the sample photos. So yeah, I'm so excited. The buttons that I got are just some light brown buttons that I'm gonna sew on. And yeah, I'm so excited to give this to her. I'm also knitting a blue one for her younger sister. Her younger sister is like 2.5, close to, yeah, 2.5 basically. So I'm going to knit the exact same pattern, just again, a size down for her. And those are their Christmas gifts this year. So you'll definitely see the blue one on this channel once that is finished. Pattern wise, you know, the button plackets are knitted with 2.5mm needles, which was a little tight, I will say, because of this yarn. I think using 2.5mm, I don't know, it just felt really tight, but I mean, that's kind of like what it's meant to look like. These plackets are meant to be kind of like really tightly knitted, I guess. So I think in that aspect it's fine. And all of the ribbing is done a half needle size down as well, which I did do. And yeah, just some more details on the shoulders. The entire thing is knitted flat because it opens up like this. It's basically like a big piece with a hole at the top for the neck, and it's secured with buttons. So that's how it kind of comes together. So if you are not a flat knitter, you know, if you really don't enjoy knitting flat, then I would probably say this project is not for you, because 100% of it is knit flat. For me, I actually didn't mind it, and I think it's because of the yarn. This yarn was really fun to work with. It's so smooth, it's very bouncy, and I found it was pretty easy to keep even tension knitting back and forth, which, you know, I think I find in some of my acrylic yarns, knits, like for example, knitting the cloud blouse in the acrylic, it's a little harder to keep tension when you're knitting flat versus in the round. I don't know why that is. I don't know if it's just like something unique to me and the way I knit, or if it's the yarn, which I think it's the yarn, because, you know, again, I had a good time knitting this one flat and didn't mind it really at all. So I think it maybe has something to do with the yarn. So yeah, it's really cute. And knitting this one in a wool makes me kind of want to knit another one for myself. I am able to fit in like the second to largest and the largest sizes in the junior pattern because this pattern has so much positive ease. So I'm actually thinking of making myself another one, because the first one that I got, you would have seen, I'll put photos up here, is like super cropped because it definitely was too small and it was like using acrylic yarn, so the size was just completely off. And while I can still wear it, it's like, I don't know, it doesn't quite fit me the way I want it to. So I don't know, maybe I'll have to knit one for myself and then I can match with my nieces. That'll be kind of cute. But yeah, excited for this and excited to gift this at Christmas. Next up, I'm going to talk about some whips, my 2 whips. The first one is the Ingrid sweater. It is still obviously on the needles. I unfortunately had to frog the entire sleeve because the decreases were killing me, okay? The way Petite Knits tells you to do the decreases is, in my opinion, dumb. I don't know why she does it that way. I truly don't know. And I feel like anything I saw online, people were like, how do you do these decreases evenly? Like, it doesn't make sense. And some people were doing them in different ways. And so that's what I did. I will talk about it in more detail when I talk about this as a finished object, because I have a lot of notes on this pattern. But my biggest update, again, is that I had to frog the sleeves. And I traditionally use magic loop technique for my sleeves. That's my preferred method for sleeves. However, because this one has so much of the pattern on the sleeve, it was looking messy with my magic loop. I mean, I'm pretty good with my magic loop technique with keeping tension around the ends, like the end stitches, but I don't know, it was just tripping me up. And I was like, I have shorties, let me just use the shorties, even though they kind of give me hand cramps because they're so small. Like, these definitely give me finger cramps, but it's much easier. So that's another piece of advice too. If you're doing the Ingrid sleeve, I would honestly really try to do them on shorties if you can. You can get these at most of your yarn shops. I got these online actually, and they've been working great. So although again, they give me some hand cramps, it's definitely preferable than for me to do them on magic loop technique. So that's kind of where I'm at now with the sleeve. And I kind of have, I've kind of just been saving this knitting project for my weekly knit along group that I go to every Thursday at Mother Knitter. It's been really fun. I love the group of women that go there. It's like such a fun community. And since I go weekly and I knit for at least like 2 to 2.5 hours there, I have just kind of decided that this pattern or this sweater will be my knitting group project. So that's been the one that I've been bringing. So I haven't worked on the sleeves really at all in between. But yeah, still liking it. I do still like the pattern and doing it, and it is fun. But like I said, it was frustrating having to kind of frog the sleeves and working out the decreases. But I figured out a method that works for me, and we're going with that. And my second whip is my second Monday sweater. I cast this on yesterday, if not 2 days ago, and I'm basically done with the folded neck, and I'm working on the short rows, on raising the back currently, plus some raglan increases, and then soon I will be just on the raglan increasing. So that's kind of where I'm at with it now. And like I said, this is my second Monday sweater. The yarn is the yarn that I purchased while I was in Munich. It's the Mayak 100% cashmere yarn. It's in this beautiful mossy green color. It's funny because my first Monday sweater is also in a green. It's in like a deep forest green. So I don't know, like I guess I decided to do another green sweater. But yeah, I'm really excited for this because again, the Monday sweater was the first sweater I'd ever knit. It was the first time I did German short rows, first time I did raglan increasing, and just first time doing a sweater in general. And I love my first Monday sweater. I think it still looks pretty good, but there are definitely some areas I think that could be tweaked and made to look a little nicer. So I'm happy to be doing this my second time because I definitely have more experience with all the different knitting elements, I think. And I think my tensioning has gotten even better as I've been knitting longer and longer. So I'm really excited to see how this one comes out versus the first one. And with this project, I actually did do a gauge swatch. I'm proud of myself because I freaking hate doing gauge swatches and I will not do them unless I have to. But I had to because the Mayak yarns, I guess, all come without gauge. Like they kind of have I believe they come with like a suggested gauge, but they don't tell you exactly what the gauge is. And that really irritated me at first, but you know, it gave me some like discipline to be like, no, you should gauge swatch. And so I did do a little gauge swatch. I couldn't even do the full one. Okay. That's how much I hate gauge swatching. And my excuse for this yarn is that I got the last 6 balls that were at this store, and this specific colorway was on sale for half off because I think Mayak is like discontinuing it. So I'm not even sure if I can get this exact color again. And so 6 balls is all I have to work with. And I think that's like just enough to get me to a sweater. So I also was like, I need to do the tiniest gauge swatch so that just in case, you know, I don't have to like make it into a t-shirt or something. But yeah, this is the gauge swatch, and I ended up using 3.5 millimeter needles, and I hit gauge perfectly, like literally perfectly. This is 21 stitches, which is exactly 10 centimeters, and that is what the gauge is for the Monday sweater. And I even hit gauge vertically as well. And so yeah, this is basically washed and blocked little gauge swatch. So I'm glad that I hit gauge the first time, because if I didn't, I'd be like, I'm not doing another gauge swatch. I would have just had to have estimated the needle size. So I'm really happy that worked out. So if you're working with the Mayak 100% cashmere, 3.5 millimeters for me is 21 stitches for the 10 centimeter square, if you want to use that as a reference and not gauge swatch. But yeah, I love this fabric, like the way it looks. I'm really excited to be knitting with 100% cashmere. I'm really enjoying this yarn so far. I think I like it even more than the wool knits that I have done. And maybe I just have to be a cashmere girly from now on, but I'm scared because cashmere is so much more expensive than wool. But I do tolerate it more than wool. Even superwash merino is still like a tiny bit itchy on me, whereas cashmere is pretty much like I can wear on skin. So part of me is like a little afraid to finish this sweater, because if it's like cozy and great, then like it's like, now I'm just gonna have to buy cashmere yarn. But I did get this on sale, so obviously, you know, you can get cashmere yarn on sale for a good price. But yeah, I'm pretty excited about this. This is basically my at-home knitting thing. So it's just like when I'm at home, or maybe a little bit on the go before it gets too big, I'll be knitting this, and then the Ingrid is kind of reserved for my Thursday knitting group. Now, as for future plans, you know, nothing has really changed since the past few episodes. I've mentioned a few things in my last episode that I am still planning on casting on. Like I mentioned, I do still have to cast on the other Lulu slipover for my other niece, but I'm gonna take a break because, again, that isn't really due until Christmas. And I finished this Lulu slipover within, you know, I don't know, within 2 weeks, I think. So I feel like I'm in a good place, and I probably won't cast on her Lulu slipover until maybe like October or November. And in the meantime, I still have some Christmas present ideas that I want to knit for other people. So I'll probably be casting on those projects fairly soon. And yeah, so nothing really changed much in the future plans kind of area. So yeah, this is kind of a shorter podcast for me, but I hope you all enjoy, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.